Between 1963 and 2024, there have been 14 actors to play the 15 main incarnations of the Doctor. In that time, there's also been Timeless Children, Fugitives, Warriors, Dreamlords, Valards, and Curators. In other words, there are an insane amount of Doctors and so much history to explore, whether you're new to the show or just want a refresh. I'm Ellie for Who Culture, and this is every version of the Doctor explained. The First Doctor, first appearance 1963. The First Doctor was an enigmatic and short-tempered figure who took some time to warm up to his fellow travellers. He and his granddaughter Susan had left their unnamed, at the time, home planet for an undisclosed reason and ended up in London 1963. The First Doctor was sometimes stern, but mostly had an impish sense of mischief that was teased out by his human companions. The positive influence of Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright helped mould him into the hero that audiences recognise today. Key moments in his life include the first encounters with the Daleks and the Toymaker, and saving the entire galaxy from the Dalek Time Destructor. Eventually, the First Doctor's body gave in to old age after a grueling encounter with the Cybermen, and he regenerated inside the TARDIS. The Second Doctor, first appearance 1966. The Second Doctor was even more impish than his predecessor, but he also had a dark and manipulative side. This is the Doctor who experimented on his companion Jamie McCrimmon in an admittedly well-intentional attempt to defeat the Daleks once and for all. Not only did Patrick Troughton face the Daleks many times, but also the Cybermen, more so than any of his successors in fact, clocking up 4 stories across his 3 years in the role. Other notable highlights of the Second Doctor era are the introduction of the Ice Warriors and the first encounter with the Time Lords, the latter of which changed Doctor Who lore forever. It was the Time Lords who punished the Second Doctor for his frequent space-time meddling by forcibly regenerating him and stranding him on Earth. The Third Doctor, first appearance 1970. The Doctor was exiled to Earth for much of his third incarnation and became much more of an action hero than the 2 Doctors before him. He was employed by the United Nations Intelligence Task Force as a scientific advisor, although he often clashed with his boss, the stern yet respectable Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. The Doctor and the Brigadier would become best of friends and remained loyal to each other until the Brig's death in 2011. The same is true of Sarah Jane Smith, who first met the Doctor in his third incarnation and would become the most beloved companion in the history of the show. One of the Doctor's other best friends / enemies, the Master, was also introduced during the Third Doctor era. The dynamic between Jon Pertwee's Doctor and Roger Delgado's Master has rarely been equalled in future incarnations. The Third Doctor's life came to an end when he exposed himself to fatal levels of radiation to destroy an enormous spider known as the Great One. He regenerated on the floor of unit headquarters as the Brigadier and Sarah Jane looked on. The Fourth Doctor, first appearance 1974. After his regeneration, the Fourth Doctor set off in the TARDIS to explore all of time and space once more. A bohemian wanderer, the Fourth Doctor never stayed in one place for too long, despite having more seasons under his scarf than any other Doctor. He had a wittiness and a wildness about him not seen in previous Doctors, traits that have remained even slightly in every subsequent incarnation. Highlights of the Fourth Doctor's time in the TARDIS include his ascension to the position of Lord President of Gallifrey. He didn't last long. Some proper fleshing out of Gallifrey and the Time Lords, and inadvertently burning the real Mona Lisa. After many years of adventuring, the Fourth Doctor regenerated after falling from the Pharos radio telescope, thanks to the machinations of the Master. As he died, he merged with a mysterious manifestation of himself known as the Watcher, a creature about which we still know very little, creating his next incarnation. The Mobius Doctors, first appearance 1976. Doctor Who appeared to reveal 8 previously unseen incarnations of the Doctor in a notorious moment from the 1976 serial The Brain of Morbius. Battling the renegade Time Lord Morbius, the Fourth Doctor flashed back through his previous lives, and then began cycling through faces the audience had never seen before. Each Morbius Doctor was played by a member of the Doctor Who production team, from producer Philip Hinchcliffe to former floor manager and future director Graham Harper. The intent was to imply that these Doctors came before the First Doctor, though this wouldn't be truly acknowledged on screen until the 2020 episode The Timeless Children. The Fifth Doctor, first appearance 1981. The Fifth Doctor was the most youthful incarnation in the classic Doctor Who era. But rather than write this Doctor as a young adventurer with a zest for life, the Fifth Doctor was often written as an insecure and indecisive character. This often meant that his stories ended with catastrophic amounts of bloodshed due to the Doctor's inability to find another way. He was one of the only Doctors to have a companion die on his watch, with boy genius Adric meeting his maker in the story Earthshock. He did, however, put his youthful frame to good use, and even took time out of adventuring to enjoy a spot of cricket. The Fifth Doctor finally got his act together in the caves of Androzani when he risked everything to save new companion Peri from a deadly sickness. Having secured enough of the cure to save only his companion and not himself, he bravely gave his life for her and began the process of regenerating, which perhaps due to the poison's effects felt a lot different than normal. The Sixth Doctor, first appearance 1984. The Sixth Doctor was far more confident and bombastic than his predecessor. He had a strong moral code and wasn't afraid to speak truth to power. Though this caused some to view him as pompous and unpleasant, the Sixth Doctor was also very progressive. During his era, he spoke out against the dehumanizing effects of reality television in Vengeance on Varos, advocated for a plant-based diet in Revelation of the Daleks, and exposed corruption at the heart of Gallifreyan society in The Trial of a Time Lord. Six's tenure also saw the introduction of Melanie Bush, who is currently battling evil once again alongside the 15th Doctor. This noble incarnation of the Doctor had an underwhelming exit when he appeared to regenerate after falling off his exercise bike during an attack on the TARDIS. This rushed ending was due to Colin Baker's untimely firing and subsequent refusal to return for anything less than a full season. 7th Doctor Sylvester McCoy donned a wig in his place. The Valard, first appearance 1986. The Trial of a Time Lord revealed another mysterious incarnation of the Doctor, the Valard. The exact nature of how the Valard came to be was never fully explained in the show, perhaps due to how tumultuous the making of this season was. Going by what's said on screen, the Valard is a distillation of the Doctor's darkest urges that originates somewhere between their 12th and final incarnation. The Master is the one who revealed this information, and they're far from being a reliable source, however. The Valard did confirm this to the 6th Doctor, though, and warned him that he was inevitable. Anyone else just think of Thanos? I am inevitable. Anyway, it remains to be seen whether or not we'll see the Valard again in one form or another. He could feasibly appear any time before the end of the Doctor's life, so who knows when he might pop up again. The 7th Doctor, first appearance 1987. Sylvester McCoy's 7th Doctor started out as a clownish character with a darker edge, not unlike Patrick Troughton's 2nd Doctor. However, he soon hardened into the most manipulative and direct of the Doctor's incarnations. This was a Doctor who was sick of seeing evil win and resolved to do something about it. One of the most notable moments in the 7th Doctor's life was when he destroyed Skaro, the home planet of the Daleks. Given that the 4th Doctor had previously refused to destroy the Daleks at the point of their creation, this demonstrates how tortured and Incarnation 7 truly was. In the end, what toppled this almighty Doctor was a lack of gun control and America's healthcare system. He was shot down in an alley and died on the operating table, forcing him to regenerate into his 8th face. The 8th Doctor, first appearance 1996. The 8th Doctor was a breath of fresh air, handsome, romantic, and possessing a zest for life and thirst for adventure. Paul McGann's incarnation would have revitalised the character on TV, had the powers that be decided to continue with him. While the 8th Doctor's TV adventures never went further than the 1996 TV movie, he's had parallel lives in books, comic strips, and audio dramas, and that's where he truly found his audience. Eventually, in 2013, it was revealed that the 8th Doctor regenerated at the height of the Time War, after his attempts to save a crashing freighter went horribly wrong. Deciding that the universe was no longer in need of a Doctor, he regenerated into a warrior. Doctor Who initially skipped over 8's regeneration, however, kicking off the 2005 revival with the 9th Doctor fully formed. The 9th Doctor, first appearance 2005. The 9th Doctor was a bruised and battered veteran of the Time War. Unable to see another path, it was the Doctor who ended the war by annihilating both the Time Lords and the Daleks in one fell swoop. This made him the last of his kind. Not unlike the 1st Doctor, the 9th incarnation was standoffish and had little time for humans. The positive influence of Rose Tyler brought him out of his shell, however, and helped him learn how to be the Doctor again. By the end of his life, the previously lonely 9th Doctor had a proper gang of companions, including Rose, Mickey, Captain Jack Harkness, and the tragic Linda with a Y. After Rose absorbed the heart of the TARDIS to save the Doctor and Jack from the Daleks, the Ninth Doctor took the powers of the vortex from her to save her life. Overwhelmed by the energy coursing through his body, he regenerated once again. The 10th Doctor, first appearance 2005. The 10th Doctor was far breezier than his predecessor, but only because he'd found a way to repress his Time War trauma. This version of the Doctor is the most overt ladies' man, copping off with companions, Australian pop stars, and Zygons left, right, and centre. The 10th Doctor also introduced the idea that the last of the Time Lords can be a bit of a dick without a companion. From drowning all the little Rachnos babies to trying to defy the laws of time themselves, the 10th Doctor had a real dark streak when left to his own devices. This Doctor's era saw the introduction of Donna Noble, as well as the grand return of the Time Lords, who temporarily found a way to escape the destruction of the Time War. After sending them and their leader Rassilon back into hell, 10 regenerated after absorbing fatal amounts of radiation that would otherwise have killed Wilfred Mott, Donna's grandfather. Dr. Moon, first appearance 2008. You didn't expect that one, did you? Now, it's never been confirmed in the episodes themselves, but Colin Salmon's Dr. Moon from Silence in the Library / Forest of the Dead is actually a future incarnation of the Doctor. A Doctor Who magazine feature called Showrunner Showdown revealed that Stephen Moffat, who created Dr. Moon, emailed Russell T Davies in 2008 to explain that, in his head, Dr. Moon was a representation of a future Doctor who had died in River Song's arms. Oh. According to Moffat, when River dies in Forest of the Dead and lives on in the library's computer as a data ghost, she learns that dying Doctor has popped his mind inside a moon to watch over her, worrying she'll get lonely. Oh my god, I can't handle it, it's so cute. Now, will we ever see Dr. Moon ever again? Well, possibly not, but even if we don't, it does certainly change your perception of his character, doesn't it? The Meta-Crisis Doctor, first appearance 2008. The Meta-Crisis Doctor was a genetic hybrid built from the combined DNA of Donna Noble and the 10th Doctor's severed pickled hand, which he had lost in a sword fight in the 2005 Christmas special. This half-human, half-Time Lord clone of the 10th Doctor eventually triggered a catastrophic explosion that practically destroyed the New Dalek Empire. The 10th Doctor was furious with his counterpart, which was a bit rich considering the whole Rachnos drowning incident, and he exiled the Meta-Crisis Doctor to live in a parallel Earth with Rose Tyler, believing that she could make him a better man. The 11th Doctor, first appearance 2010. The 11th Doctor started out as a shy, nerdy kid with the memories and experiences of a man who was centuries old. This changed through time as his relationship with River Song, the best character, made him much more confident and dangerously close to being described as laddish. 11 had one of the longest lives a Doctor has ever had. He learned the truth that River Song was the daughter of his companion Amy Pond, visited his own tomb, and became so feared that his greatest foes assembled to seal him inside the Pandorica. Alongside 2 previous incarnations, he also ended the Time War by saving Gallifrey, freeing himself from the guilt of having initially destroyed it. Though this was the first Doctor to run out of lives, he was given an explosive new regeneration cycle by the Time Lords, allowing him to regenerate into his next incarnation. The Dream Lord, first appearance 2010. The Dream Lord was a manifestation of the 11th Doctor's darkest impulses and thoughts, who was brought to life by psychic pollen trapped inside the TARDIS time rotor. The 11th Doctor was able to defeat him by identifying which of the Dream Lord's realities were real and which were tricks. Played by Toby Jones, this darker version of the Doctor shared much in common with the Valard, and they could potentially even be one and the same. The Valard was supposed to come into being between the Doctor's 12th and final incarnation. The War Doctor, plus the 10th Doctor's extra regeneration in the Stolen Earth, meant that Matt Smith's 11th Doctor was actually the 13th Doctor. I mean, even if it was never the original intent, it's terrific headcanon. The War Doctor, first appearance 2013. The War Doctor was who the 8th Doctor chose to regenerate into during the Time War. He committed many dark acts, including pressing the button that destroyed Gallifrey and the Daleks on the final day of the battle. In the Day of the Doctor, his successors feared the War Doctor at first, but soon realised they actually had a lot in common, and that there was a soft centre beneath his grizzled, battered exterior. The rehabilitation of the War Doctor, and the 3 Doctors reconciling their dark past, is at the core of Doctor Who's 50th anniversary special, and it's lent real emotional heft by the casting of the late John Hurt. After he saved Gallifrey with his past and future selves, the War Doctor's body couldn't take much more, and he regenerated into the 9th Doctor. The Curator, first appearance 2013. First appearing in the closing moments of the Day of the Doctor, the Curator is a version of the Doctor from some point in the far future. Retired from adventuring, they settled on the face of the Fourth Doctor in order to revisit one of the, quote, old favourites, and set about curating the secret undergallery hidden beneath the National Gallery in London's Trafalgar Square. Knowing the 11th Doctor's future, the Curator provided him with some encouragement to seek out Gallifrey. This enigmatic and enchanting scene between Tom Baker and Matt Smith was one of the highlights of the 50th anniversary special, memorably booming that Gallifrey falls no more. Tom Baker's second incarnation of the Doctor set the show off on its next 50 years. The 12th Doctor, first appearance 2013. The 12th Doctor had a bit of an existential crisis post-regeneration, asking the question of whether or not he was a good man. This was likely due to being the first face of a new regeneration cycle, as well as the fact that 12 was much older than the previous few Doctors. Ultimately, it didn't matter, because he proved time and time again that he was the same hero he always was. Peter Capaldi's Doctor started off gruffer and more aloof than his predecessors, but that just hid his softer side. He went to some very dark places, even turning against his own people in order to save Clara Oswald, demonstrating that this is a Doctor you do not want on your bad side. 12 fell in a battle with the Cybermen on a Mondasian colony ship, but in an unprecedented move, he refused to regenerate. One last adventure with his first incarnation and his new friend Bill Potts convinced him that the universe still needed a Doctor. The 13th Doctor, first appearance 2017. The 13th Doctor was an entirely clean break from the trauma of the Time War, and was arguably the most vibrant and full-of-life incarnation since the 8th Doctor. This didn't last for long, however, as the Master revealed the Doctor's hidden past, that she was actually a member of a mysterious unknown species found at the edge of the universe by explorer Tech Tayun, who took her in and raised her on Gallifrey. So determined was the 13th Doctor to learn more about her history that Tech Tayun, who wished to keep certain knowledge a secret, unleashed the powerful flux to try and stop her, which nearly destroyed the entire universe. The 13th Doctor had one last battle with the Master, during which she was forcibly regenerated into her arch-enemy's body. After refusing the process, 13 was shot by the Master and regenerated into a very familiar face indeed. The Fugitive Doctor, first appearance 2020. Joe Martin's Fugitive Doctor was discovered hiding in modern-day Gloucester by the 13th Doctor and the Fam. This incarnation of the Doctor had worked for the shadowy Time Lord organization Division, which operated outside established Time Lord code. However, the Fugitive Doctor had grown weary of the immoral work she was asked to do. Turning her back on Division, she used the chameleon arch to change her biology and hide out on Earth as Ruth, a charming tour guide. Ruth lived in Gloucester for an undisclosed amount of time with the Fugitive Doctor's companion Lee, until the Jadoon, plus a Gallifreyan operative known as Gat, arrived to bring her in. The 13th Doctor refused to believe that Ruth was an incarnation from before the First Doctor, but she soon learned that this was the truth. The Timeless Children, first appearance 2020. It's arguable that all 7 Timeless Children don't count as versions of the Doctor, as they hadn't yet assumed the title. However, they do represent the Doctor as a child. The Timeless Child was how the Doctor was originally known when she was discovered by Tech Tayun. A being of unknown origin, the Timeless Child had the ability to regenerate infinitely and was experimented upon by Tech Tayun, who ultimately unlocked the secret of regeneration and spliced that DNA into certain Gallifreyans who renamed themselves Time Lords. Tech Tayun's experiments resulted in at least 7 separate incarnations of the Doctor. It's unclear how long each of these children lasted, but what is clear is that Tech Tayun isn't winning any Mother of the Year prizes anytime soon. The 14th Doctor, first appearance 2022. The 14th Doctor had the face of his 10th incarnation, but this wasn't another meta-crisis situation. 14 was reunited with Donna Noble, who still had repressed Time Lord energy within her after absorbing part of the meta-crisis. However, Donna was able to pass on some of this burden to her daughter, Rose, which prevented her from burning up. With Donna safe and sound, her and 14 travelled together for a brief time. They arrived at the edge of creation, where the Doctor invoked superstition, an action that allowed myth and fantasy to flood the Doctor Who universe universe. Ultimately, the Doctor was shot dead by the Toymaker, but rather than regenerating, the 14th Doctor bi-generated, a myth that was made possible thanks to his earlier actions. Bi-generation resulted in both the 14th and 15th Doctors existing simultaneously. 15 jetted off to see the universe, while 14, weary from centuries of battle, retired with Donna and her family. This was why the 10th Doctor's face returned. It was a reminder that he needed to stop. The 15th Doctor, first appearance 2023. The 15th Doctor barely had time to catch his breath before jumping in to help his previous incarnation defeat the Toymaker in a game of catch. Once the Toymaker was defeated, 15 encouraged his past self to take some time off and process centuries of grief and trauma, and then he flew off in his TARDIS for brand new adventures. Only one of the 15th Doctor's adventures has aired so far. He faced the Goblin King, met new companion Ruby Sunday, and feels like a reinvigorated version of the character. Still unmistakably the Doctor, but with a renewed vigor and lust for life, which promises to make his era incredibly exciting. Well, that concludes this list, but if you want some more Doctor information, why not check out how every Doctor Who got cast. In the meantime, I've been Ellie for Who Culture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.